the twilight of his life, Leo Tolstoy, the titan of Russian literature, author of War and Peace and Anna Karenina, stood at the edge of a precipice. Despite fame, wealth, and artistic triumph, he found himself paralyzed by a question that clawed at his soul. What is the point of living if everything ends in death? This was not the abstract musing of a novelist, but the raw, suffocating despair of a man who saw life as a cruel joke. Tolstoy's existential crisis, detailed in his essay A Confession, led him down a path of spiritual torment, intellectual rebellion, and, ultimately, a revelation that would redefine his understanding of existence. His journey from nihilistic despair to a radical embrace of faith offers a haunting yet hopeful answer to the oldest of human questions. Why are we here? By the 1870s, Tolstoy had achieved everything society deems meaningful. His novels were celebrated across Europe. His estate, Yasnaya Polyana, bustled with family and admirers. But beneath this veneer of accomplishment festered a void. In A Confession, he described his life as a stupid, spiteful joke. Wealth felt trivial, art seemed vain, and love, even for his wife and children, struck him as a fleeting distraction from the inevitable. Death. I could not give any meaning to any single action, or to my whole life, he wrote. I was terrified. This was not mere melancholy. Tolstoy's crisis was a collision of reason and existence. He had spent decades dissecting human nature in his novels, yet the more he understood life's mechanics, the more meaningless it seemed. Science offered cold comfort. Darwinism reduced humanity to biological accidents. Astronomy revealed a universe indifferent to human suffering. Philosophy fared no better. Schopenhauer's nihilism mirrored his despair, but provided no escape. Tolstoy found himself trapped in a paradox. How could life feel so urgent, yet be so purposeless? In A Confession, Tolstoy recounts a chilling Eastern parable that mirrored his despair. A traveler, chased by a beast, clings to a bush growing over a well. Below, a dragon waits with open jaws. Above, the beast snarls. Two mice, one black, one white, gnaw at the bush's roots. The traveler licks drops of honey from the leaves, knowing the bush will soon snap. For Tolstoy, the parable distilled the human condition. The beast is death, the well the void, the mice and time-devouring life. The honey, our petty distractions, art, money, love, that briefly sweeten an inevitable fall. I could not tear my eyes from the mice, he wrote. The honey had lost its taste. This was nihilism in its purest form, life as a meaningless struggle against annihilation. Yet Tolstoy refused to let go of the bush. Suicide, he concluded, was a logical response but a moral failure. As long as there is life, there is meaning, he insisted, even if he couldn't see it. Tolstoy's salvation came from an unexpected source: the uneducated peasants of rural Russia. While intellectuals debated Darwinism and materialism, the peasants labored, loved, and faced death with quiet dignity. They did not question life's meaning. They lived it. Tolstoy envied their simplicity. They know the truth, he wrote. They understand life and death. This peasant faith was not rooted in dogma, but in an intuitive grasp of existence. Peasants worked the land, raised families, and found purpose in community, not in abstract theories. Their lives were hard, yet they did not succumb to despair. Tolstoy realized that his intellectualism had blinded him. Reason, he concluded, could dissect life but not justify it. To find meaning, he had to feel it. His revelation was not a sudden epiphany, but a slow awakening. He began to see faith not as a set of doctrines, but as a relation to the infinite. In Anna Karenina, Levin, a semi-autobiographical character, embodies this shift. After grappling with suicidal thoughts, Levin finds peace not through philosophy but through labor. Working alongside peasants, he discovers that life itself is the answer. Tolstoy's newfound faith was heretical. He dismissed institutional Christianity as corrupt, criticizing the Church's obsession with miracles and power. The Church is a lie, he declared. His Christianity was stripped of ritual, focusing instead on Christ's ethical teachings: love, humility, non-violence. He also rejected science's claim to ultimate truth. While acknowledging its practical benefits, he argued that science could not address existential questions. "Why should I live?" he asked. "Science is silent." Darwinism explained origins but not purpose. Materialism described matter but ignored the soul. For Tolstoy, science and religion were two sides of the same error. Both sought to explain life rather than live it. Tolstoy did not romanticize suffering, but he saw it as a crucible for meaning. In the death of Ivan Ilyich, a bureaucrat confronts his mortality after a terminal diagnosis. Initially terrified, Ivan realizes on his deathbed that his life of social climbing was empty. True meaning, he discovers, lies in compassion, in the gentle touch of a servant who comforts him without pretense. This mirrored Tolstoy's own awakening. Suffering shattered his illusions of control, forcing him to confront his fragility. "It is only when we are broken that we see clearly," he wrote. Pain, he realized, was not life's enemy, but its teacher. In Anna Karenina, Levin's journey mirrors Tolstoy's spiritual quest. Tormented by existential questions, Levin nearly takes his own life. Salvation comes not from books or sermons, but from the rhythm of scything hay with peasants. In their toil, he finds a truth that transcends reason. Life is a duty, a burden to be borne with joy. Levin's revelation is Tolstoy's answer to nihilism. Meaning is not found in grand theories, but in daily acts of love and labor. The duty to live, to care for others, to work honestly, to embrace the present, becomes its own purpose. Tolstoy spent his final decades as a radical moralist, renouncing his wealth and copyrights, advocating pacifism, and living like a peasant. His philosophy, a blend of Christianity, anarchism, and humanism, inspired figures like Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. Yet he remained conflicted. His family resented his austerity. The church excommunicated him. His ideals often clashed with his human flaws. Still, his legacy endures. A Confession remains a cornerstone of existential literature, a raw testament to the struggle for meaning. Tolstoy did not solve the meaning of life in a conventional sense. Instead, he redefined the question. Meaning is not a riddle to be answered, but a way of being. It is found not in escaping suffering, but in embracing life's fragility with gratitude and love. Near the end of A Confession, Tolstoy revisits the parable of the well. The traveler still clings to the bush, the mice still gnaw. But now, the honey tastes different. It is no longer a distraction, but a sacrament, a fleeting yet profound gift. The meaning of life is to live, he concludes, not to conquer death or outsmart despair, but to serve the good in the time we have. Tolstoy's answer is defiantly simple. The purpose of life is life itself, the act of loving, working, and connecting despite knowing it will end. In War and Peace, Prince Andrei, dying on the battlefield, sees the sky as infinitely beautiful for the first time. The ordinary becomes sacred, the finite infinite. We need not be peasants or saints to grasp this. We need only to stop licking the honey long enough to taste it. As Tolstoy wrote, the sole meaning of life is to serve humanity, not in grand gestures, but in the daily choice to push back the darkness, one act of kindness, one moment of presence at a time. The mice are still gnawing, the well still gapes. But Tolstoy, like Sisyphus, found joy in the task itself, to live fully, knowing it is temporary. This is the rebellion that defies the abyss.